So do you want me to sort of talk about why I came to you with this idea, I guess?
Sure. Go ahead, Kazu.
No, yeah, no. So basically, I was listening to your podcast, but to the your long marathon of the director game, and in the midst of you talking about all these directors I didn't know, there were times where you would talk about certain movies, and it would trigger sort of your memory of like where you watched it, what sort of the event of going to that movie. And with while I was listening to it, it sort of made me think about going to theater, and sort of how much of a missing piece that is to sort of, even as a casual moviegoer, let alone how often you go to the movies, but just how nice that can be.
Yeah, in a way, I think it could be something maybe even more missed by casual moviegoers because that's really their main way they go to see movies. And I'm continuing to see movies at basically the same rate as I am during pre-COVID. But yeah, for a lot of people, yeah, that part is definitely is a missing aspect of society for sure. And yeah, definitely something interesting um, to look back on our different memories. Um, for any of you, I just was realizing as you're talking that this is going to be maybe a confusing podcast for any listener because uh, not we sound the same, and Cameron is absent this time around. I'm here with my brother Kazu. For anyone who has not realized that or read the description, and he came to me with this idea, and I'm very curious to hear what you have selected because you seem to have some ones you want to talk about.
Yeah. So just to explain for everyone, I thought it would be fun for me and Juzo to just sort of think about some of our favorite movie going experiences, and then also maybe some of our least favorite ones. I thought those would also be kind of fun to talk about,
Yeah, because there's a
because
lot of
I know
different categories.
sorry, yeah, but for me personally, there are some that have definitely stuck with me through the years.
Yeah, there's some that are like memorable because the movie was so amazingly bad, and sometimes because it's like there was some hostile encounter, or because you had like or just a terrible audience. So I have one in particular that is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen, but a horrendous audience, and not really a good audience movie in general. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, and I think also another reason why this exercise is a little interesting is because um, some of the best movie experiences don't necessarily have to be our favorite movies,
Oh
and
yeah, no,
some
not at
of the
all.
worst ones, at least for me, I know are not necessarily bad films, but
Hmm.
just going to that film wasn't uh, the most fun for me, I think.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, some of them are bad films. Yeah,
Oh no, yeah,
we'll get to those as
there are
well.
definitely a
Did
couple.
you did Are you talking exclusively in theaters? Because I wrote down a few non-theatrical movie watching
Yeah, I
experiences,
kept
but
it to only theater movies I've seen in the theater.
okay. Well, we could start off with that sort of
I
thing.
thought that would kind of narrow it down. So
Yeah.
do you want to start with the positive or the negative?
Let's start with the positive, or at least whatever your positives are.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of broke my list down into sort of three categories, I would say. Um, the first being sort of like the event films, like the blockbusters, ones that we kind of saw sort of stick out. And then sort of on the other end of the spectrum were ones that I've seen solo. Some of those stick out to me. And then the last sort of category or subcategory that I have, at least, is is just the DC movies, because I think all of those are sort of unique experiences. terrible
yeah,
movies, but a unique experiences.
for sure.
And I guess I'll start. And this is, I think, if I remember correctly, this was the first movie I ever saw solo. And it was in 2014, and it was Whiplash. And
Oh, really?
so I think we had seen it together. At least, I think.
Yeah, I saw it by my own, and then I got you guys to see it. Because at
Yeah,
that time, no
and
one knew who Damien Chazelle was, and it was word of mouth that got people to go to that movie, basically.
yeah, and I remember seeing it with you and mom and dad, and it was awesome. As someone who plays music, whatever, I just thought it was really great, and it was one of those first films where I really wanted to go see it again. It was so good. I was like, I want to see it again. And I was at the time like 13, so I wasn't really independent and I could just go to a movie when I wanted. So I remember I
Right.
had to convince dad to take me to the Shattuck, and
Uh-huh.
he went and saw some other movie, I think.
Oh, did he?
And he went and saw something solo, and I got my ticket to Whiplash in one of the
Because it is R-rated, so he would have had to get it for you.
in one of the little small theaters. And it was I remember this viewing for me, I think the adrenaline just was was pumping even more, because I started to sort of notice more things about just the subtleties of how J.K. Simmons was sort of playing the character of Fletcher, and sort of these extra details of of him calling him Neiman, just it's
slightly mispronouncing his name. Yeah.
just all these little things that you could see he was just trying to get under Miles Teller's skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the reason, and then just kind of going back into why it was so memorable, is I remember I think the movie Whiplash came out, or it ended before Dad's film ended. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got to walk out of the theater and sort of really let it sink in. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this happens with you, but I know for me, when I kind of come out of a movie, there's sort of that feeling for an extra 5 to 10 minutes in the movie, kind of. I don't know if you have that, but I don't know.
Still in the world of the movie, you mean, or you're kind of
you're in this sort of surreal state where you can only think about the movie. And I just remember walking out of the Shattuck and sort of just pacing around in front of the Shattuck, waiting for it to come out of the movie.
Oh wow!
And I know just on a personal level, I enjoy the independence, mm-hmm. And I'm just kind of pacing around on on Shattuck at night. Maybe not a little bit sus, but it just gave me time for me to really think about the movie and really enjoy it.
I know what you mean. You always complain when we see movies if I ask you immediately, what do you think of the movie? Which I make fun of you for, but secretly, I think I kind of agree with you in a lot of ways, because when you talk about this, I think about it is a little awkward when a movie ends. You're in an emotional space, and then you're thrown back into the world, and it feels weird to just immediately talk to someone. Usually if I'm seeing a movie with someone like Cameron or something, we don't immediately start talking. We kind of sit there, especially if it's something really, really good, for watching a John Woo movie, maybe, but something where it's a little, you need to take a little more time to contemplate it.
Yeah.
It can be a little uncomfortable to jump right back into conversation and real world kind of speed of things, I guess.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I fucking hate it when when the last shot of the movie comes up and the first credit comes up and you're like, oh, so did you like it?
Which I think I don't do that much anymore.
I think you've learned your lesson, kind of. But I guess, I mean, usually it's a good thing because we are the types of people that stay through the credits. So a lot of the time, you sort of use that extra 2 to 5 minutes to
That's
kind of
true.
like collect your thoughts.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for some movies, it takes, for at least for me, it takes a lot more time. And I guess I can kind of, if I can sort of segue into another one that is very similar, I would say, is when I saw Moonlight, which was a couple years after.
And that was what you saw for the first time by yourself, right? I remember I kept trying to go with you, and then
Yeah.
you saw it.
So if I remember correctly, so I was a freshman at Berkeley High, and I
Yeah.
want to say I um I think it may have been like I had basketball practice, and so like I was already there late, and it was like a Friday night,
Mm-hmm.
and I sort of had decided like, okay, I'll go to practice, and Juzo's been bothering me about this movie Moonlight, like let me see it. It's supposed to be pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was surprising. It was a really good audience. It was
Is
like,
it the Shattuck?
yeah, it was at the Shattuck. It was a
Uh-huh.
packed house. It was like the is it Theater One? It was the bigger theater.
Yeah, yeah. At the
Um,
back.
yeah, and it was really full. And I remember, it's such a like a beautiful movie, and so heartbreaking too. Where I just remember the scene at the table in the first chapter.
The last scene with Mahershala.
Yeah,
Oof.
where it's Little and Mahershala Ali's character and Janelle Monáe,
Uh-huh.
and when he asks him like, "What's a faggot?" and it was just like
Yeah.
it was crazy how quickly just like emotionally you're just like, oh my god, like Jesus Christ.
Uh-huh.
And then and then Barry Jenkins, as a writer, just comes in with the next punch of like, so like,
Oh, and
so you
you
sell
sell
drugs,
drugs. Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
just like, oh,
Oh
like,
my God. Yeah.
um,
It's weird that didn't have a big impact on me the first time. I must, the reason though, that was a very bad movie going experiences because I went out to see it like because I really wanted to in the city and I was reserved seating, which I didn't realize. So I saw it like way on the side, like a trapezoid. And the guy next to me had the most pungent cologne, literally so pungent that when I see the first shot of the car pulling in Moonlight, it like a sense memory comes back to me of the cologne. So I remember coming home and thinking that was pretty good, nothing to write home about. But yeah, of course, now when you talk about it, it's like, yeah, of course, that's a great scene. Like, what am I crazy? It's like
yeah, and
movie's
that's
like a
really funny.
masterpiece.
No, it's really funny because I remember with my audience, it was a full audience, but I remember when those lines came up, you could hear like the audible gasp and then sort of
Mm-hmm.
just like silence of like, that like tension, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that one was um talking about the sort of like comprehension at post viewing. I remember
Mm.
I had to take like a couple walks around the block before catching my bus. I was so like in
Really?
like I just like it was just like, wow, like this is just like it was one of the more emotionally draining, like really like, but like positively, like it was a really well done.
It's interesting. I didn't know that detail about walking around the block. I definitely
Yeah.
remember the impression of when you got back home
And I think
of how
I
moved you were
think
by the film.
yeah, no, I do remember sort of because I got a lot of time. Unlike some movies, I got a lot of time to think about and collect my thoughts about it.
And I remember also
Yeah.
thinking, wow, I'm so happy that I didn't see it with Kazu.
Yeah,
Because it
because
is
I got
the
to.
nakedness of the emotion of that movie is an awkward thing to share with like your brother, like it is.
Yeah, no, I got to walk around the block. I got to take my bus home,
Mm-hmm.
walk, do that nice little walk down to our house,
Mm-hmm.
which is always really nice at night.
Yeah, for
um
sure.
but yeah, I think at that time I probably just got an iPhone around that time. So I want to say I probably, went on iTunes and started listening to the music as well.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so those were a couple solo ones, you know, coincidentally both at the Shattuck, but
Yeah,
just
yeah,
a couple where, obviously the both movies are, some of my favorites of the decade,
yeah.
but it's like it's one of those, it's two movies where um you get so invested in it as a viewer. I thought that like that sort of the come down of walking out of the theater was
Yeah, yeah. I remember because there's so much kind of. I feel like there was a lot of fake people being fake moved by Moonlight. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, that's not bullshit, right? Like, there's a lot
yeah,
of
no,
people.
yeah.
I don't want to say white people, but kind of white people who was like, I mean, not discounting even the people who are like, oh, Moonlight should win. Oh, really? Did you like it? Oh, I've never seen it. But I'm talking like people who saw the movie who are like, oh, Moonlight, what a poetic. I was so deeply moved. I understood something about myself. You just feel like, oh yeah, sure you did, But you were like one of the only people who I remember talking to where I was like, oh, no. This person, not only did he like genuinely was moved by the movie, but he was actually more moved by it than I was. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think it is it's something that's very special about Moonlight because the protagonist I would say is about as far from who I am as a person, just in terms of like, their
Mm-hmm.
identity.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's something so relatable just about like some of that like isolation or just like sort of like
His
feeling.
personality is in some ways not dissimilar to yours. I remember,
Yeah,
at least
no,
that's
yeah,
what I felt when
definitely
I
sort
watched
of
it.
shy. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I could see that as well. But
keeps to himself, kind of thing. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, but not
but still very observant.
yeah, yeah, and but and it is interesting to watch something like that where the place he comes from and his race and all these different elements are not are so different, but you feel yourself in the character nonetheless. Yeah, that's the whole experience. Is it okay if I kind of jump into my own
Yeah, no, you should
memories
you
of
should go into a couple.
because what I this reminds me of is the experience, the special experience of going to the movies by yourself for the
Hmm.
first time, which I'm now trying to think exactly. I'm not exactly sure what the movie was that was the very first one I saw by myself. I think there's a chance it might have been that movie. Honestly, looking at the logs, weirdly, I think one of the first was Lincoln, which I saw at the
Hmm.
Oaks, or is it the Fair Oaks or the Oaks Theater in Arroyo, the little tiny theater.
I think it's the Fair Oaks.
Yeah, that one I remember seeing it, and then I walked all the way back to Grandma's house after seeing
Okay.
that. But
Are you sure it wasn't like American Hustle or like one of
no,
those?
because that was the year. That was 2012. American Hustle was the year after.
Hmm. Huh.
I remember Elena was a big one, the Russian movie, because not only was it something I saw by myself, but it was something that Grandma recommended to me, and I'd never seen a foreign language movie before. But Grandma Georgiana said,
Hmm.
"You got to check out this movie, Elena," and I remember seeing that at the Shattuck. But unlike you, these were not movies that themselves were memorable to me. Like I liked them both, but they were not profound
Mhm.
experiences. American Hustle was one, and that year was the one where I really started going a lot. And I remember American Hustle distinctly because that was the first one where I remember being terrified of buying the ticket because I was not 17. I think I was 16, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And I was like so nervous. And I asked Adam, he's
yeah.
like, no, I don't, I got to go home. And like mom and dad are not going to come down and buy me a ticket. So I just went in, and literally they didn't even ask for ID. The people at the Shattuck, they could give less of a
Yeah,
shit.
that's pretty funny because I mean, is Moonlight R rated?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I mean, Moonlight, I definitely just bought a ticket.
Oh yeah, and
um,
you would have been like
and
14 or
like
15. Yeah.
in the same year, Arrival. Actually, Arrival's probably not R rated.
We need to give a lot of props to the Shattuck in California folks because they really are
Yeah,
just
they really
very cool.
came through for the
And
teenage viewers.
yeah, and because I not only American Hustle, but when me and Adam saw Wolf of Wall Street at the California, they didn't card us even for that movie, which I mean, that's a hard R movie. I was segueing into my first movie going experiences, but I'm quickly realizing they're completely unmemorable. So I'll let you move on to whatever else you want to talk about.
Well, okay. Well, I think one more that I have. This one is it's a little less about the movie, but I just when I was going through my my Letterboxd and just sort of like skimming through the movies and just seeing if anything sort of stuck out. And one that I came, as I was looking, that sort of stuck out to me was actually Baby Driver. And what was interesting about that is that, so if I remember correctly, we saw it at the Shattuck.
Was that your first time seeing it too?
Yeah, I think it was all of our first time seeing it.
Okay.
I think it was me, you, and Dad. And I really like Baby Driver. I think it's pretty good.
Oh yeah, and
but
fun.
I was thinking about it, and for a second, I couldn't think about why I have such a vivid memory of that movie. But it's because I want to say like that weekend or somewhere around that like week and a half was when I got my driver's permit.
Oh.
And I remember like before we went to the movie, I think we sort of drove around, like Dad let me go drive like Grizzly, sort of like, because we were like, oh, we want to see the movie.
That does sound familiar to me.
7,
Yeah.
And it's like 5:30. We need to kill some time.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
And sort of we just like went driving and we talked about whatever. And and we went to the Shattuck and saw the movie, and I got to drive home, which probably in my mind probably I probably in my own head about like, oh, I'm gonna be like Baby Driver,
Right. Right. We're probably listening to the soundtrack on the way back. I bet Dad already bought it.
Oh yeah, sure. I would assume so. Yeah, never gonna give you up or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's just a quick one I remember very vividly.
Well, that actually leads me to remember a really great movie-going experiences I had also with an Edgar Wright movie was The World's End at the Grand Lake, which I just remember being probably it was not the first movie I'd seen at the Grand Lake. I'd seen some of the Pixar ones and like Inception, but that to me was the first time I saw a movie there where I really got a sense of that. This is the best crowd you could possibly see a movie with, because it was a full house. People were just laughing their heads off in general. But the thing that was the sort of the climax was when Nick Frost punches one of the aliens and pulls his wedding ring out and says some like goofy one-liner, and the whole audience like broke into applause. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best way to see a movie. So it's kind of a small one, but it was definitely very memorable. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Do you want to maybe let's talk about the DC movies for a little bit.
You want to do those or the big blockbusters?
Why don't we go to DC, and then we can talk about some of our worst ones, which I think will be pretty entertaining.
Yeah,
and then we can kind of come back to the blockbuster ones, because the blockbuster ones I think for both of us are pretty special, and I think we have a very similar list. But
yeah, though the DC ones and the bad ones, I'm not sure how many. Well, we have an interesting one because I think one of your worst is in my best, but we'll get to that. But let's do the DC first. So what's the first one? Well, I guess I should talk about Man of Steel briefly, right? Because that was a movie that I hadn't seen any Zack Snyder movies. I didn't have a sense of who he was as a director, but that movie, which is a darker take on the Superman sort of remake of the Superman origin story. It was written and produced by Christopher Nolan, and the trailers had a very Nolan vibe. So I really was anticipating this movie kind of to be like the Dark Knight for Superman, if you can believe it. And we saw it in a Times Square theater, and it was a very bad audience. There's a woman like eating stuff, and like she might have even been like texting and on the phone or something. It was a bad crowd to start off with. And the movie, it's a strange. You've never seen Man of Steel, have you?
What? I've only heard your opinions as well as Red Letter Media's opinions, basically.
Right. Oh, I didn't even think that's another actually important point of that movie, because that movie actually literally led me to Red Letter Media. Yeah. But we saw the movie is very odd because early on it seems almost good. Like I never got a sense it was going to be a Dark Knight, but you're watching, you're like, okay, this is a passable, level of like Avengers quality movie. Yeah. Goes along fine. And then there's that whole, once Michael Shannon gets to Earth and they start fighting each other and punching each other through buildings, it was just this like excess of violence and collapsing buildings. I mean, and the awfulness of the experience was exacerbated by the fact that we were in New York City. But even if we hadn't been, the tastelessness of that vision and the mind-numbing noise and visuals of it. I mean, it's just it might be the worst passage of film I've ever seen. Like, I've seen worse overall movies, but like that could be the most torturous passage of film.
Yeah, one of the more miserable ones.
And I didn't even care he was killing people. Like, that was, I don't care Superman. I don't care about his mythology. I'm not offended he killed Zod, but just the notion that like, oh, these 4 people are going to die after thousands and thousands have been died in, 1,000 9/11 scale disasters. It was just like, oh my God, just horrendous. And literally, I think, I almost think it ruined my entire New York trip to some extent, because the entire time I just started thinking about like being dead, and it put me into this like despairing like depression, I think.
Yeah, we went to like the 9/11 memorial. Like,
I should laugh at that, but yes.
Yeah. No, because I remember how visibly miserable you and Dad were when you came back to the hotel.
Yeah, and we were so pumped to see it. We're like, yeah, Christopher Nolan doing Superman. And
yeah, I mean, at that time, Christopher Nolan. I mean, obviously, Christopher Nolan's your guy still, but
yeah, he was coming off from Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, especially Christopher Nolan was your guy.
Yeah,
and even if it wasn't directed by him, but
nothing other than just serious, I guess. But yeah, and then the thing I wanted to add about Red Letter Media is just that the weird thing about the movie was it got good reviews. Even Mick gave it a good review. And to this day, I don't understand this, but people seemed very charitable to this movie. They quickly stopped being charitable to the DC movies, which we'll get to. But for some reason, it was very well reviewed. And I remember just scouring, trying to find any kind of review that reflect what I thought about the movie. And I came across, and maybe I had seen some of the Plinkett clips out of context, and maybe I really did think it was a crazy old man or something. Like, I didn't really understand what I was looking at, but I found this review somehow, and I was very confused because it started with a skit of them talking to an old man and repairing his VCR. And I was like, what the hell is going on in this? But as soon as they started talking about the movie, I was like, yes, I agree with everything these guys are saying, and they're funny. And it was just I felt like I was I felt seen, I guess is what the phrase is.
Yeah, your opinions were validated.
Yeah, exactly. And that was 7 years ago, and now they've continued to be people we watch. Red Letter Media guys.
Thank God, guys have given us countless laughs.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, we can get into like Rogue One and all that stuff. I mean, even when we disagree, like the Boyhood stuff, obviously I disagree with them hating Boyhood, but the whole Boyhood 12 years thing is still funny to me, I mean, that's how you know a critic is good, is when even when you disagree with them, you still respect their takes on things. Yeah. let's see
So
what else.
should we? I guess we could kind of move into chronologically. Batman v Superman,
Yeah, it's
which
a kind of a gap. There's like 3 years later, right?
yeah, and I guess that's the next DC movie, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Uh,
Back when there were big spaces between these franchises.
well, at least between DC, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so we saw that at the Grand Lake,
Hmm.
correct?
Yes.
It was me, you, and Dad. I don't know. Thinking back on it, I don't know why we thought it would be worthwhile to go see it because
There is nothing in its favor.
reviews weren't good, right?
No, they were terrible.
Yeah, I guess part of it was probably Dad wanted, Dad's a big Batman fan,
It was the
so
first Ben Affleck Batman movie.
so I guess he probably didn't mind at least giving it a shot, right?
Yeah, we were all very trepidatious. I don't remember us being like, "Oh, this is gonna be great," but it was more like, maybe we'll give it a shot. Maybe the critics had it wrong. That it was that kind of vibe.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I've not seen a single shot of that movie since you've seen it. I forget what year that came out, but
It's 2016.
yeah, but I think just as the movie was going on, the start of it, I don't remember being like awful,
No, I was hopeful for 5 minutes because there's an opening credits where it shows the killing of
Oh yeah, that's
Bruce
right.
Wayne's parents in slow motion, and it's decently well done. It's like well shot, I was kind of going like, okay, okay.
It's funny that the opening credits are the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I think for me, you had been very vocal about how terrible Man of Steel was, for 3 years at that point, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, I didn't have high expectations, but I think as soon as Batman started beating Superman's head into a toilet, I, I like, I didn't have to watch Man of Steel to understand why the hell you hated those movies, that
Right.
with such passion.
Yeah.
But I think you should maybe explain sort of why we still have a positive thoughts
Well,
when thinking about going to see this movie
it
because
was
it was so
it
bad.
was like a masterpiece of awfulness. It was not like Man of Steel, which is like it's like if you take the tenets of what makes a great movie and then a masterpiece, like Man of Steel is like a near masterpiece. But this one, it hits on, other than the good opening, it hits on all cylinders from just like Affleck is terrible. Like I think Affleck maybe is worse than Cavill in the movie, which is like weird, but he really is bad in those movies. And it's weird because he seems to sincerely care about them, but I don't know. He's awful. Even Gal Gadot was not really good in the movie.
She's
Um,
basically not in the movie.
yeah, it even just the menial scenes that are not nightmarish violence and just chaos are very like poorly shot, and they're like handheld, and it's just characters
Really
exchanging
dark, really like
portentous
hard to
dialogue.
see.
Yeah, it's like weird.
'Cause it's like
There's
it's poorly. It's not. I mean, it's like very darkly lit, but
yeah.
it's a fight between a very muted Superman
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
and a black suited Batman in like a dark, abandoned building, and it's just like,
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
this? Like,
I know it's just hideous, but it's also Snyder has like a weird thing. I think the Nerd Writer actually did an essay about this, where
yeah,
he
yeah,
beautifully constructs little moments that are really like visually stunning, like the opening actually. But then the rest of the movie is just kind of like camera on the shoulder, very uninteresting coverage. The score to me actually started to make me laugh when I would hear like the Wonder Woman
the
theme.
Wonder Woman theme.
I mean,
Yeah,
it is in some ways maybe the greatest achievement of Patty Jenkins in Wonder Woman. That theme now actually I take seriously as like, oh, that's awesome, because for the how many years, a year before Wonder Woman came out, anytime I would hear that guitar riff, I would just like laugh at it because it just was so awful as used in that movie. You can't not mention Jesse Eisenberg because he really is terrible.
I forgot that he's in that because, like, I think about the like weird like monster,
the big fight, but
yeah, but I completely forgot about Jesse Eisenberg's.
He is horrendous,
insane
as Lex Luthor in that movie. And of course, the whole Martha thing. It's interesting. The movie is reassessed in some sectors as being genuinely like good. And people talk about, some people actually like that. And look, I mean, I respect it if you're moved by him saying Martha like that.
Wait, actually, that has to be like a bit though.
I don't know. There are people who sincerely like that movie. And again, I don't want to be a person who just shits on people because they like something I don't like. Like, that's fine. But in terms of how we felt about watching it, the Martha thing, I'm not sure if I laughed when it happened, but it definitely, I was like, wow, this is one of the great bad movie moments I've ever seen in a movie, where he's
definitely. I at least laughed, or I know for sure I looked to the side, like I looked at you, like we made eye contact, and just like, wow, that was bad.
Oh my god, yeah, and it's what turns him. It makes it what stops them fighting. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
amazing.
It's like a robot with a certain command word. It's like,
yeah.
And it's everything.
Oh, now we're friends now. It's like, it's so bad. And I also remember I'd never leave a movie to use the bathroom ever. And I remember I went to the bathroom twice in that movie. And I think by the end of the movie, I didn't even come back to my seat. I just sat in the back of the theater and just watched it, so I could just like laugh, I think, or just not be
giggle.
Yeah. And I remember it was, and also the other thing that's interesting, Grand Lake cultural thing, is I think that was the first time I remember being at a movie at the Grand Lake where the applause was either muted or insincere. Because no matter what movie you see there, if it's an opening big, audience, people clap at the end of it.
Yeah.
But that one, it was like a full house of people, and it was a very, very muted reception when it ended. And I think I was clapping ironically, if I remember correctly. Yeah. I don't know, but the thing that made that so wonderful, I think, like sticks in my memory, was seeing that, and then going to Picante afterwards with you and Dad, and just all of us just like breaking down all the different awful things in that, because there's just so much to talk. I mean, I've been talking for like 10 minutes just describing just some of the bad things in that movie. And Dad in particular, it was just hilarious listening to Dad, being a person who actually knows these comic books and like takes them very seriously, and just how offended he was by this movie. It was
offended
amazing.
by Batman just like murdering.
Yeah, like just these things that were so antithetical to.
Yeah. That's probably the most passionately, passionate anger I've heard Dad have from me.
Yeah, Dad doesn't really go rip into movies that often.
Yeah, if he sees a bad movie, usually it's just like, he's like, it wasn't that good. He sort of treats it the way I treat bad food.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, that's very true. Yeah. But for him, he just went off on this movie.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get to the point that I saw the movie again. Did I tell you that?
No.
I saw it again with Cameron in San Francisco because I insisted Cameron had to see this movie. And for some reason, he went along with it.
Oh, God.
And what was he?
Look what it turned into.
What is it? I forget what part where he laughed. Was it when they said Martha? I don't remember, but I remember he was laughing when he said Martha, and he's like, "Oh my God!" And
or was it when Jesse Eisenberg peed in a can?
I don't know, but he was just like, I just had a great time seeing it with Cameron, and I think afterwards we took like the tram back to our apartment, and we were just like, "What the fuck?"
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were in school.
Yeah, and then Cameron showed me the Justice League cartoon TV show, because he's like, this show has more like better writing and character arcs and storytelling than this thing, and it did. I don't really remember much about it, but it was a much better 1 hour, half-hour storyline than the movie itself. Yeah. But yeah, that started a wonderful tradition that unfortunately has been put on hold for a little bit, of us forcing Cameron to see DC EU films. Yeah.
So I guess, what was it? Probably 2 years years or 3 years later when Justice
No,
League?
well, I guess Justice League was like a year and a half. It was the year after,
Okay.
but like late in the year.
Yeah. We again went to the Grand Lake. This time I went with you and Cameron. And I think this was like the first movie where or at least for me, where I went to the movie knowing it was going to be like absolute garbage. Like we went to see it for the entertainment of it being so bad.
Yeah.
And boy, did it come through.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the exact points of that movie where I just remember, like, because there's that sort of thing you do. You even do this in Incredibles too, where if there's something bad in a movie, you just like turn and look at me blankly.
Yeah.
And I feel like you were doing that a lot in Justice League probably, and I was definitely doing it at Cameron, or at least just like looking at Cameron to see how much we were torturing him, because Cameron doesn't even like superhero movies, when they're okay. And that movie is just such a mess because it's like two people making this movie and it's coming apart. Oh, I just realized that Justice League is coming out next year again.
Oh god.
Oh, and it's 4 hours long, and we're definitely going to watch it with Cameron.
We're going to watch it with Cameron.
Oh, this is so going to happen.
I'm trying to think of like specifically bad moments in the movie. I think
Justice League doesn't come through quite like the previous one, but
it basically does the same thing with Superman and the Martha thing, except they use Amy Adams to do it because Superman he's bad, reborn, and he's all bad, and then they just like stick Amy Adams out in the middle of a courtyard, and she's like Superman, and then
she's like, yelling Clark in front of the public.
yeah. I mean, it was already bad. There's like it's such a mess of a movie because it's trying to introduce so many people in such a quick time, and
it's trying to be funny. There are these tones that are at odds with each other of like trying to be very like trying to be a Marvel movie. There's Whedon coming in, and honestly, I think he makes it in some way worse because I think the worst thing in that movie is Ezra Miller trying to be funny as not Quicksilver. What's the guy's name? Oh, the Flash. He is so awful in that movie.
Yeah, and then it's the introduction of Aquaman and him surfing on like the insects in the air.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
It's such a mess. I think with that one, it just like, especially because it's a Joss Whedon film, it just highlights how well Marvel has handled big action.
It really is Marvel because Whedon is not that good. Like I think the Whedon Marvel movies are actually some of my less favorite movies, and the only thing that makes them like fun and enjoyable to a degree is just you like Downey and you like the guys in it.
He writes dialogue, I think, pretty well.
I would disagree.
Amongst the group, not in Justice League.
I don't know. I mean, it's okay. I just hate. He has this like these quips and stuff. It just drives me.
That's fair.
I don't know. I would take the Russo Marvel and definitely obviously the Gunn and Coogler Marvel and Favreau over Whedon any day.
No, I would agree.
I just remembered one moment that's the all-time great moment in that movie is when they realize that the way they can reincarnate Superman is to desecrate the grave of Michael Shannon or whatever. Or no, they desecrate Superman's grave.
Yeah.
And like hold his body over a cube or something and drop the cube into the water or something.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of Jesse Eisenberg like waddling through like the like muddy, murky water to create Doomsday or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah.
It's just and it's so bad because it just falls into the same like narrative like acts. Like it's like really bad introductions, exposition, then like a really stupid like middle battle between the like, like they're gonna butt heads, but then they're gonna come together, and then they come together to fight like a faceless, weird,
The Steppenwolf thing.
yeah, another big bad villain that you like don't even know why they're even there.
Yeah, I think you missed in Seattle when we were moving you into Seattle. The movie was on the TV in the hotel, and Mom literally thought that it was a joke. Like, I was like, "No, that's the villain. That's Steppenwolf." And she's like, "No, stop trying to trick me. What is this?"
Yeah.
And then
I remember that just being so fun, just because it tortured Cameron.
Yeah, that was a blast watching that with him. I wish I could remember more specifics, but it was.
But even worse, even worse was us making him. I think it was like a 10 o'clock show. Making him go watch the 10 o'clock
in San Francisco
of Aquaman.
At the Metreon. Oh my god! I think that might be the worst one, actually. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen Batman v Superman in a long time, but Aquaman really. And again, it's like Man of Steel, where it got good reviews. People seem to like it.
Yeah.
But that movie
it's just schlock.
Is asinine. I mean, it was torture.
That one. I think this one is the one that borders most into the like bad movie going experience, to where like it was so close to where like it was like, yikes, we may have just wasted 2 hours of our time.
Yeah, I mean, for you guys like that. For me, I was like in my head at least cackling in delight watching you, and in particular Cameron being forced to watch this, like going all the way past like midnight. And I think that one is particularly bad because of like the acting. I think is really Amber Heard and Jason Momoa are just like so terrible in that movie, and it's hideous. And there's like another big battle and stuff. Unfortunately, they seem to have got their act together, because like last year they did these two very small scale and good movies with Shazam and the Joker. But I'm looking forward to returning to the Justice League with Cameron next year.
Yeah.
It's like on HBO or something. I don't know. But
yeah, I think Aquaman is, as much as I'd like to put a couple of these movies that we're about to talk about as my worst, as like my least favorite movie like of all time, I think Aquaman is probably around there.
Oh yeah, it's definitely in the running. I'm not sure what my official least favorite movie. It's probably something by like Godard or something, but yeah,
or Man of Steel.
Well, no, but Man of Steel as a whole movie is not like if I rank the DC.
That was not. I guess Batman v Superman too. Those were at the bottom of the list for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it's hilarious if you look at when I do like a ranked Marvel movies, and it's like, mostly okay, some really good, like maybe one or two bad. And then DC, it's like Wonder Woman, Shazam, and then it's like literally next one is like Man of Steel.
At 1.5 stars.
Yeah, Man of Steel, I think Justice League, Batman v Superman, and Aquaman. Just a disaster.
So I think that's a good segue into talking about some of the other end of the spectrum, some of the worst times we've had at the movie theater.
Right. But not necessarily an awful movie.
No. I would say two of these movies that I'll talk about, I think are actually probably pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you have any that you want to start with, or should I?
Well, I have. I'll go first actually, because the one that I really thought of as being a bad movie going experience, but a great movie is Her, the Spike Jonze movie, which is a movie that has gone on to be one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a masterpiece, but it's like Moonlight. It's a very quiet and intimate movie, and seeing it, but unlike Moonlight, it's a weird concept. Like Moonlight, you go in, you can just take the whole thing seriously, but because it's a guy falling in love with his operating system, with his phone basically. And seeing that with a full audience at the Cerrito. I went with Dad and Margaret and Evan, and they all really liked it. But people around, it's like it made them so uncomfortable that they had to like joke about it. So it's like the whole movie that's like this really profound and beautiful and serious movie. There are these people like tittering, laughing at certain things in the movie, or like commenting on Joaquin Phoenix's character, going like, "Oh, look, he's sad now." Like people literally, there was someone saying that at one point.
Like saying it aloud?
Yeah, like, "Oh, he's sad." You know, like something like that. I was like, "Oh my God." Oh, and then
narrating the movie.
yeah, like it was like these people who were like, you know, like kind of like when you're with your friends, you watch something that's kind of uncomfortable and you want to like joke about it.
Yeah.
That's the sense I got. They were like, I think they might have been European. I remember they had accents. But yeah, there's people behind us. And then the other thing that made that really awkward too was, I mean, it's awkward already just seeing a movie like that with your family, because, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but there's like scenes in that where like he is like talking to his OS and he's like whacking off, and like there's very, very like uncomfortable things in general. But even more uncomfortable with that was, I remember seeing a father, a very nice looking dad, and his daughter, who looked like she was probably like 14, sitting in front of us watching this movie. And I just remember I could see the discomfort in the two of them. And just that, in addition to all the else that was going on, just made the whole thing a really very, very uncomfortable experience. And so much so that I went and saw it again at the Shattuck by myself, and then had a much better experience at the movie, though I could tell still that it was great the first time. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You missed out on that one, but you can tell just from what I'm saying that it's a lot of cringe-worthiness going on. I could really feel for that girl and her father's pain watching that movie. Oh my God.
Okay, I'll go with one. I'll do a kind of similar one where I think this is actually like a great movie, but it may have been one of the more miserable movie-going experiences for me. So the movie is Logan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and this is a very interesting one because it came out in 2017, I think. Pretty early in the year, I want to say.
Correct.
And I think we kind of all knew it was going to be really good. Like
it had a
trailers that came out were some of like the best trailers of like the last decade. Like
for sure,
great trailers.
The Johnny Cash one. Oh my God.
And you know, for those who don't know, Logan is the X-Men Wolverine film, but what's special, I guess, about it is that it was the first Wolverine or first movie to feature Wolverine that was R-rated, and you know,
very
Wolverine,
R-rated.
Who is a very violent character in the comic books, sort of never, I guess, got his justice.
No, not with the shoving claws through people's skulls and
so
oh my God.
So anyway, so I personally, I am someone who hates like gory violence. I stay away from it.
Right.
And you know, this is 3 years ago, so it was probably even worse.
Sure. Oh, wow.
Even more specifically, I am not a fan of like knife stabby, you know, like gunfire.
No, you told me about that. I remember when we were watching something. You said I'd much rather see a guy get shot than a guy get stabbed.
I think it was Us, right?
No, I remember. I think it was earlier. I think it was we saw Inception, and you said that when Marion Cotillard stabbed him, this is when you're much younger. That was much more disturbing to you than when people got shot or whatever.
Yeah, no, I think I guess for me, like that's what made Us so creepy too. Is the stabbing.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good.
But
one
anyway,
to talk about. Yeah.
So going in, like when it came out, I you know, it got really good reviews. And I was probably not gonna watch it. Just going in. At best, I knew that you and probably Dad would go see it. And maybe if you guys came back and you were like, you know, there may be like some like scenes that are really bad that where you can kind of like do the sort of like half close your eyes.
Which we had done for a few movies at one point. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm a fucking scaredy cat when it comes.
It could have been actually Get Out. We did that because that was a little
that
earlier in that
before?
year. Yeah, that was a little earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And I remember we saw that, and I told you to hide when they cut the guy's skull
when they
open.
cut the skull. So anyway, bottom line, I wasn't gonna see this film probably.
Right.
But, it was like a weekend, and I forget when it came out.
March.
And I get a call from my friend Luke, and he and his family, his dad and brother, they wanted to see a movie. And they're like, hey, like, you want to come see a movie? We're thinking about seeing Logan. And it was like, and they were also going to invite Kaylin, my other friend.
Right.
And I knew, I was like, yeah, I guess, like like I do remember sort of being like, are you sure about this? Like, you want to see this? And they're like, yeah, like, whatever. And I think for them, like, they probably saw like, oh, it's an X-Men movie. It's getting really good reviews, right?
Right.
In the high 80s on Rotten
Right.
Tomatoes, whatever. And like R-rated, but they probably didn't like really look into how R-rated it was.
Yeah.
So, I was
well, you're a nicer like friend than me. Like you're more.
No, I will sacrifice a lot to go.
Like I would have forced them to go see Lego
nice,
Movie 2 or whatever was
have
something
a nice
else.
Outing with my friends. What's unfortunate is did this come out the same year Deadpool came out?
It came out the year after.
Oh, okay. Then never mind. But anyway, so we saw it at the AMC Emeryville. I think we saw it in IMAX.
Mm-hmm.
So it was even.
Oh man.
But like we went to Emeryville. We got candy at the gas station.
Oh, nice.
And we went in, and we sit down, and the movie starts. And early on in the movie, I don't know if it's the opening scene, but Logan, he's driving like a limo, and his tires get.
The first scene of the movie.
Yeah, I think that's the first. Is that the first scene?
Yeah, they're pulling off his tires while he's sleeping in the limo. Tires.
And
like, hey guys, please
like,
come on. Yeah,
I'm sitting there. Kaylin's to my right, Luke's to my left, and I'm like, oh, these dudes are fucked. Like, he's gonna come, and they I think they shoot him. They shoot him in the head or something.
Yeah, and something like that. Yeah.
Oh boy, like this is about to go down. Yeah. And he fucking rips into them, like completely obliterates them.
Yeah, cuts some limbs off. It's like limbs, brutal.
Probably a head. Who knows?
Yeah.
And I remember turning. I remember turning to my right and just looking. Or no. I was at the end. That's what it was. I was at the end of all it was me, Kaylin, Luke, and then Luke's younger brother, Flynn, and Dave. Poor guy. And I remember just looking over, and they were just like dead face, like, holy shit. Like, just like shocked. Oh, and I just was like, wow, this is about to be a long movie.
Oh,
and,
fuck.
It's really good. Like,
no, it's like an amazing
the dynamic between Logan, Xavier, and
Laura,
Laura, the kid.
Yeah.
It's so good. Especially Xavier and Logan.
Yeah.
Oscar worthy stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I could recognize it in the movie, right?
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
Wow, this is great.
Yeah.
But by the time and there's other action stuff where it's pretty violent, but I think where it hit rock bottom for me, and I think where this might be going, is
it's been a little while since I saw the movie.
Is when they go seek shelter at the house.
Oh.
And this is where spoiler alert, Xavier is killed by I guess
it's a doppelganger
of Logan, basically.
Yeah, it's an evil. Yeah,
it's like an evil doppelganger.
Yeah,
and it just turns in like that scene just turns into a horror movie basically.
Oh, really? Yeah. The whole family gets killed. Maybe.
You know, again, for me, I am someone who, I did not want to go see Get Out. It probably took you guys a lot of convincing to go see Get Out, which I would say,
or even mild. Us last year.
Yeah. Even it was very mild compared to this, right?
Yeah.
And in that whole sequence, like the evil Logan is like murdering the like wife and like murdering the kid, and like it
does he kill the kid too? Oh my god!
Yeah, he kills the kid, and then he like hurts the dad, but the dad shoots him, but then he shoots himself, right? And
oh shit!
I remember after watching that scene, I just was like, I like wanted to throw up.
Oh my god! So you didn't like close your eyes or look away? Because I've probably did that when I was younger.
The thing was like, yeah, but I think I was in such like shock, kind of. I couldn't like not.
Yeah. And also, when you're with your friends, you don't really want to just feel like, oh.
But I think for a lot of that movie, because like, but the thing with that was like, it was like a jump scare sort of thing, where it was like, you weren't really expecting it, because like some of the action set pieces, like you're expecting the violence, like even the opening scene that I was talking about, I would kind of like have my eyes sort of half open, you're like, like,
right,
sort of like one eye open, one eye closed.
No, it's true, because he leans in and you think it's Logan, but then he like his claws come out and he kills Patrick Stewart.
and it's like so quick.
Yeah.
That, you're sort of just like, what the fuck just happened? Like,
yeah,
why the fuck did? And then you finally figure out what happens, and it's
yeah.
But anyway, even like from that point, it doesn't get that violent. Like it, he goes, and I think they fight like an army of sort of just like henchmen at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And he gets like impaled by the tree, I want to say. But even that, like,
oh, it's a rough movie all around. But
it's somehow
that horror movie scene
goes up in terms of like positivity after that sort of horror sequence,
right?
But anyway, that was one where it's it's a great movie. I remember at the end of the movie, when they bury Logan, and like Laura puts the cross as an X. It's like
an homage to Outlaw Josie Wales. Yeah,
your dumbass didn't get it. But like walking out of the movie, you're like, I wanted to like throw up. I didn't want to do anything, but I knew like, wow, that was like a really good, like it was a really good movie. In terms of just how it was well made. But I just that one is one that sticks out to me as like just miserable.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was like miserable throughout the movie.
I don't think I ever had an experience that was quite like that, because for me, I always was very careful about movies and selective about violence in movies. So I think the way it happened was I would ramp up so slowly in terms of the disturbing qualities of what I would see that I never got – there was never something like where I just got thrown into like I had seen a lot of shit by the time I saw Logan, but still, that was one of the most like graphic, violent movies I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it still is.
I also think you at a certain point sort of flipped the switch of like, I don't really care. Like,
oh, for sure, but that's what I mean is I was able to do that because I did it very slowly. But I never had that circumstance where, like, I suddenly was thrown into a classroom and we're watching Saving Private Ryan, which, by the way, I think did happen to you, right?
Yes. And there was a similar feeling of just, like, I don't really want to watch this.
Yeah.
I know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's going to happen, and it's just like you want to throw up, and it gives you a stomach ache.
Yeah.
But that was in a classroom with other people. I was able to walk outside and use the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the closest thing I remember having. Go ahead.
The thing with that one is that at least it was like a collective thing, because like everyone, there were a couple people that like were like the wannabe cool people where it's like, oh, I've seen this movie before. But for most of us, it was just like, I want no part of this.
Mhm.
But so anyway, that was one that sticks out in terms of one of my worst times at theater.
Yeah, the only thing I had that was even close to that was when I saw True Grit, the Coens' True Grit with Dad in Arroyo, and I for some reason either didn't look at it or I didn't understand that a guy was gonna get shot in the face and like stabbed in the hand with a knife or something like that.
Doesn't like he get his like
Oh no, he gets his fingers cut off.
Fingers cut off, right?
Yeah. In fact, it's Donald Gleason. Yeah, he gets his fingers cut off, and I yeah, that took me aback a little bit, but it was very quick, and it was not like the continuous violence, and also just the terror of that scene that you're talking about in the farmhouse of Logan. Not even close.
Logan, it just feels like you're getting like hammered. Like
yeah, for sure.
It's getting hammered.
Yeah, yeah. Oh wow.
And there's not I mean, there is some breathing room, but like the breathing room is just depressing. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I remember when and you saw it before I did because I was gonna see it and then report back on should you see the movie. And then I was like, oh, Kazu's seen it. Okay.
That was the bigger thing is that, I was, funny enough, I saw it before you.
Yeah. And then I went and saw it. I was like, Jesus Christ, Kazu saw this movie? What the fuck? Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I remember that now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But a great movie nonetheless. I'm guessing your second one is Life of Pi?
Let's save Life of Pi.
Okay.
I kind of want to. I may go on a tangent here.
Yeah, go for it.
I want to talk about 2001: A Space.
Okay.
There was a special screening at the Grand Lake. I don't know if it was like an anniversary thing.
Yeah, it was the 50th anniversary.
Okay.
Can I briefly just build up my times I had seen it? Because I saw it twice before I saw it that time with you.
Okay.
And I saw it when I was in 7th or 8th grade on Dad's little tiny box TV downstairs.
I remember walking in to like the final scene of that and just being like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, and that's how I felt the whole movie, going, okay, I just don't, clearly this is something that's too intelligent for me to understand. And one day when I'm older, I'll get it. And then during the Kubrick retrospective at PFA, which I think was in like when I was in maybe 11th grade or something, I saw it at PFA with Adam. I think I fell asleep maybe, or I don't know, or Adam fell asleep. I don't know. But still, I was not getting it. And I just felt like, maybe this movie isn't so great. But as you were describing, do you want me to describe the circumstances or should I describe
No, go ahead.
But then, so the 50th anniversary comes around in 2001, and Christopher Nolan himself supervises a restoration of the movie in 70 millimeter that played downstairs at the Grand Lake Theater. And I got together you, Dad, and Cameron to see it. So basically, the perfect, ideal circumstances to see any movie. And I think I was well rested too. I don't think I fell asleep that time or anything. I think I was pretty engaged with it. But you had never seen the movie, so tell me what your experience was going in.
Yeah, so going in, obviously I knew Dad's connection to 2001. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he holds it in pretty high regard, I would say, right?
Yeah, he generally does. Yeah, I mean, we may have swayed him a little bit, but
I also know your sort of take on it, which was it's fine, right?
Yeah, it was pretty mixed, or less enthusiastic than most other Kubrick movies.
Yeah, so it's a nice outing. It's the Grand Lake. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll go see it with you and Cameron.
Yeah, you almost didn't go. I feel like we kind of had to like say, come on. It's a big. Yeah. It's the way to see the movie. Yeah, you got to see it.
And I think that was part of it. It was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna have to see this movie, which I feel like I'm gonna have to, may as well see it at the Grand Lake downstairs, whatever. So, and unlike some movies where, I think my experience has been sort of tainted because like I was tired. I think of like First Man, where
Yeah, I think you
similar.
need to give
It's
that one another
similar
shot.
in like the sense where like I sort of like was coming into it like with bad mood, whatever, and that's
Uh-huh.
influenced how I felt about it. This
Mhm.
one I do remember, like I was like, whatever, like this is cool, like we'll go see it. It was a pretty full theater, if I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
correctly. So anyway, my exposure to 2001 was basically only the opening part, because if I remember right, we had met, or we had, when we went to the Star Trek convention, we met one of the cast members. I forget who.
Yeah, we met the guy who gets
Lockwood?
thrown out into space. Yeah, Gary Lockwood.
That's right.
Yeah. Very nice
And
man,
I
by
think,
the way.
like I had no idea who it was. Dad was like, "Oh, it's Gary Lockwood." And I'm
Dad
like,
talked to him for like 20 minutes. He was very friendly.
and I think that led to Dad being like, "Oh, like I'll show you 2001, like just parts of it," because that was what we'd do back then. Is Dad would show us parts of movies.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true.
So I remember seeing the ape scene, with the music.
That's true. That's
whatever.
a weird. Sorry to interrupt for a second, but I completely forgot about that aspect of movie going that I feel like is completely lost sort of nowadays. But yeah, Dad did used to, like, I remember seeing the hallway fight in Terminator 2 way before I ever saw the movie, because Dad would just like put stuff on like that. Just, oh, you got to check this out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be very nostalgic.
I haven't seen the Bourne Ultimatum, but I've seen
Uh-huh.
chase sequences in the Bourne Ultimatum multiple times.
Right.
But
And that's
anyway.
also how I saw the parkour in Casino Royale too.
Yeah. So anyway, we have nice seats, whatever. Movie starts. It's pretty boring. Maybe I should
You don't
get
like
this
the
out of
ape
the way.
sequence?
I basically hate this movie.
Uh-huh.
I think
Yes.
it is one of the most overrated films of all time. But I'll break it down for everyone. So with the opening, with the sort of evolution of mankind, it's pretty boring. It's fine, whatever.
I like that scene.
The music
Okay, I don't know.
really helps. Obviously,
The music of the waltz, or the music where it's going, the really high notes where it's like screaming.
no. The dun dun.
Oh
dun.
yeah, well yeah, the very opening is awesome. That's the thing about the movies. There's a few like great things that completely are still great.
Exactly. So
And the special effects hold up really well.
I kind of think about it in 5 parts. So there's the opening, apes, whatever, which I think is boring, but it's passable, right? And then there's this sort of small next act where it's like they wanted to show off the sort of like space, futuristic, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's literally like a guy walking through hallways, and like someone.
Well, they have the
walks
woman
down,
who walks on the ceiling,
and
he's
then
traveling.
and then like something happens on the moon with like a really obnoxious sound effect, right? Which I think I was like, yikes, this is not looking very good for this movie at that point, right? So
But they're also like they're following this boring guy, and it's just like these like uninteresting. That's a pretty weak
part.
Know
anything about him, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's around halfway, right?
And Kubrick predicts Zoom calls, which is pretty cool. But yeah.
Yeah. So we're about a third to halfway in, and I'm like, this is not looking good. Like this is not. This has been way below expectation, right?
Yeah.
So finally, we get to the HAL sequence, which I think is very good. It's slow. It's a slow burn, obviously.
Yeah.
As is the entire movie, but I think it's obvious. It's like far and away the best part of the movie.
There's a few fantastic moments,
but
in that.
like the lip reading.
I was just gonna say the lip reading.
The lip
awesome.
reading. When he's like inside trying to
deactivate him is cool.
But it's good, right?
Of course, open the pod bay doors, Hal.
Yeah, at that point, I'm like, okay, I can see why people hold it in such high regard, right? This part was very good. Then comes
the what is it officially called? The Stargate? It's called the Stargate scene, right?
Yeah. Which I mean, if you haven't seen 2001, basically it's for like 10 to 15 minutes, I want to say, right?
Yeah, Keira Delea is thrown through a series of Apple iTunes
filters.
visualizers.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the old toys where you would like change the filter, like you'd look through like a telescope sight,
Oh yeah, okay,
you change
yeah,
the filter.
yeah,
But anyway, it's literally just him like spinning around with these filters and this obnoxious score.
yeah,
Um
yeah. It's
and
classical. It's like some experimental music.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like experimental string, high string. It's
yeah.
yeah.
And it's supposed to
And
convey the transcendence, and you're like, oh, okay.
I'm sitting there in my seat and I just am like, what is going on? Like, this is just obnoxious.
Uh-huh.
And, I talked to you about this.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the closest I've ever come to walking out of. I
Leaving
was
the theater.
so like, and it says a lot for how bad that sequence is, in my opinion, because it follows the Hal thing that
Uh-huh.
and because of how long it is, I just completely, that whole Hal sequence right out of my brain.
Yeah, all the good favor of
like,
that.
It's like giving me a headache. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no like
It's not really
there's
interesting,
no
deeper
meaning here.
meaning.
And if you want to argue that there is meaning, you're full of shit. And,
Oh my God.
and like, if that sequence went a minute or two longer, I think I would have met you guys after the movie.
But luckily, he becomes an old man
gone to whatever
in
movie
a
was
hotel
upstairs,
room. Yeah.
And once that Stargate whatever scene ends, at that point I was just pissed off. And the whole, like, I don't even know what Kubrick tries to pull off with the end part where
it's like time kind of like slipping away, where he's getting older and
he sees his like baby or whatever. I was just like, you're full of shit. I like off with this, and I came out of that movie very angry.
Yeah, you
that long.
Luckily, the thing about it is you're in good company, because Mick LaSalle and Amanda Green agree with you that this movie sucks. Roger Ebert had it in his top 10 of all time.
Yeah, I
love you, Roger, but I gotta disagree about this one.
Like, maybe if you were high while that Stargate was happening, maybe
that is the thing. I think every person I've met, at least, who really likes that movie is old enough to have seen it when it came out. And I think that's a key thing, is like, if you're seeing those special effects in 1968, it would blow your mind, and especially if you're, on drugs, it really is going to blow your mind. But I think, I don't know. The thing about me is I think the special effects are still like really amazing. I think they're even more amazing than Star Wars.
Yeah, 100%. No,
and other than the iTunes visualizer stuff, which doesn't age well. It just looks like he took shots of a helicopter. Like, he basically took the kind of shots that begin The Shining, and he just put filters over them. It's like very uninteresting. Yeah, and doesn't hold up. But like it doesn't stuff,
say like, it says nothing to me.
I don't. I'm sure there was someone who will be able to explain that, but I am not the person.
Following like that whole, like, his whole experience with Hal, and like having to basically like fight for his life.
Yeah.
Following it with that is just so like anticlimactic.
Yeah.
And, anyway,
I got to get you to watch other Kubrick movies.
Yeah, no,
I feel like your feelings towards him are
really like soured my,
Yeah, your opinion towards him has been soured by just one bad movie.
And I'm sure he has great films that I should probably watch.
I'm sure you'll like some of them. But yeah.
But anyway,
my experience was I wouldn't say it's as negative as yours, because A, I knew what I was getting into, and B, I probably have a little bit more patience for very, very experimental filmmaking than you do, obviously. So it wasn't like as torturous, but I have to agree it's not good. Like, I have to agree there's a lot of this movie. There's even sections of the Hal Dave sequence that I think are not particularly engaging. I'm really curious,
Well,
and
it's a slow burn. The
there's
entire
stuff that's
movie
he repeats the same scene again. Like there's a docking scene, then there's the same dock. You just watch it again,
That's
and
right.
it's like, oh my god, it's like.
Yeah,
But there's there's like, to me, there's how many actually moments do I really? I think that the lip reading thing is great. The computer thing is great, and the docking at the beginning with the Blue Danube waltz is one of like the great scenes in any movie. But I don't get the sense of transcendence or whatever that our dear Roger Ebert or even maybe Dad feels watching this movie. It's definitely my least favorite movie by him, and I would, even though I wouldn't say it's a movie I would definitely give like a Little Man Interested rather than a Little Man Sleeping, even though there are parts where literally I would be sleeping. Yeah, a Little Man Empty
Gone
Chair
from the chair.
yeah. No, I would definitely give it Interested because there's enough in it where you have to say like I respect the film.
No, I agree.
But I overall I don't really think it's a good movie. And having seen it in finally in a way that like I've seen it 3 times, I can definitively say that I really think this about it. I was just thinking, by the way, since it was 2018, you probably could have gone upstairs and seen Blind Spotting, which you missed seeing in the theater.
Don't say that. Yeah, no, I'm kind of curious if 2001 was only the how part, and then like if they cut basically the 2 acts that sandwich the how part, like the space station thing before how. I think is useless, right? Because it's not even
I agree.
It's not even him, right? It's not even
no, it's a different fella.
D'Elia, right? It's a different dude. So it's like I don't know what the point of that was, and I don't know what the point of the stargazing thing was. So maybe if those 2 weren't in the movie and it was just like the evolution thing.
I was just gonna say that Steven Soderbergh, when he cut the movie.
Whatever.
Yeah.
The end, which I honestly don't really remember that much because I think I just
checked out.
Tuned out. I checked out.
Soderbergh, he cut the movie an hour out of the movie. He cut it down to like 90 or 100 minutes.
That's
and
great.
he cut the entire. I think he may have cut the entire like moon base sequence. He cut some of the repetitive stuff. And I honestly wonder if and it got taken down by the Kubrick estate, unfortunately, so you can't see that cut. But I wouldn't be surprised if that actually is like maybe a good movie, or at least a much better movie. I'm very curious to watch also other movies that do a similar kind of thing to the Stargate, or at least the light sequence with you, because I wonder because there's a scene in The Tree of Life, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, where he leaves the narrative entirely and he goes to the beginning of time itself, and it's all these like colors in space. But I love that sequence. I mean, it's not like my favorite sequence of the movie, but I think it's great. And I wonder if you would watch it and feel, I mean, I already know you'd like it more than 2001 because a big difference is the music. In 2001, he uses the high-pitched squealing, wailing, liggity or whatever it is.
Yeah,
and
I was about to say, I wonder if that has any contribution to it, because there's a very similar score in First Man. And I think with First Man, it was a lot different because I don't think my mood going into that movie was as like good as it was 2001. But I think there was, and it was not to the extent 2001 like gave me a headache and wanted me to like.
Chazelle uses it much more sparingly, I think.
Yeah, no, and it's a lot more, and it's not for 10 straight minutes or whatever.
No.
So, but I think I think the score could have had, could definitely have had an impact.
Yeah. Malick uses opera, and I wonder if like you would watch that and.
Yeah. I think I would still think it's stupid, but I think I might just be like, whatever. Whereas like this one felt. In 2001,
like knives in your ears. Yeah.
Like it felt obnoxious to watch.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my rant on 2001. I need to get that off my chest.
That's great. You've been wanting to do a podcast about this. Is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm willing to debate anyone really about.
Next time if you ever meet Art Folker, you can talk to him because he
Oh,
really he tried to mount a case for 2001 at dinner one time.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
I have nothing like I can't defend any sort of how argument because I think that's good. But
Yeah.
any other part of the movie, I'm willing to
Yeah.
debate on that.